While NASA has been making headlines with Artemis, China has been quietly building something on the moon that nobody saw coming. Leaked documents from the China National Space Administration revealed a timeline that has space agencies around the world scrambling. And what they just revealed changes everything about the space race. Welcome to the Fact Engine. Think the space race ended with the Cold War? Think again. In the next few minutes, you're about to discover exactly how China plans to establish the first permanent human settlement on the moon, years before anyone expected. We'll reveal the leaked timeline that has NASA officials calling emergency meetings, the revolutionary technology China's been secretly testing, why they chose that specific location that gives them an almost unfair advantage, and what this means for the future of humanity in space. But first, let me show you something that most people completely missed: the hidden progress. Here's what's really happening. While the world was watching SpaceX launches and NASA's Artemis program, China has been methodically executing a plan they've been developing since 2003. And they've been doing it in complete silence. Let me put this in perspective. It took NASA's Apollo program 8 years to put humans on the moon. China went from their first satellite to landing on the far side of the moon, something NASA has never done in just 12 years. But that was just the beginning. The Chang'e program, named after the Chinese moon goddess, has had 6 successful missions. 6, without a single failure. Chang'e 4 made history with the first soft landing on the moon's far side. Chang'e 5 brought back lunar samples, making China only the 3rd nation ever to do so. But Chang'e 6, that's where things get interesting. See, while everyone was focused on the sample return, China was actually testing something else: construction technology. The same mission that brought back moon rocks also deployed experimental 3D printing equipment that nobody talked about. But here's the shocking part. Internal documents suggest China's International Lunar Research Station isn't planned for 2035 like they publicly announced. The real timeline? 2028. That's just 4 years from now. And they're not building it alone. Russia, despite their recent space struggles, has committed advanced nuclear technology. Pakistan is providing rare earth elements. The UAE is investing $10 billion. Suddenly, this isn't just China's project. It's becoming the alternative to America's Artemis Accords. And 17 nations have already signed up. What China just achieved. Okay, so here's what China just achieved that has everyone panicking. 3 weeks ago, the Chinese Academy of Sciences published a paper that most people ignored. But buried on page 47 was this bombshell: China has successfully tested lunar regolith construction at a 94% efficiency rate. Let me explain why this is huge. NASA's current plan requires sending hundreds of tons of building materials to the moon. Each kilogram costs about $1.2 million to transport. China? They're planning to build everything using moon dust. Everything. But it gets crazier. Remember the Yuegong-1 facility? That's China's lunar palace, a sealed ecosystem where volunteers lived for 370 days straight. No outside air, no outside water, no outside food. Everything recycled at 98% efficiency. NASA's best closed-loop system, 78% efficiency. Here's the kicker. Chang'e 7 and Chang'e 8 aren't launching sequentially like everyone thought. Satellite imagery from last month shows both missions being prepared simultaneously at the Wenchang spacecraft launch site. They're launching together. One mission will establish the power grid using a small nuclear reactor. Yes, nuclear, while the other begins robotic construction. And the robots? These aren't your typical rovers. We're talking about AI-controlled construction units that can work in the 14-day lunar night, when temperatures drop to minus 173 degrees Celsius. NASA's robots? They hibernate during lunar night. China's keep building. The nuclear power source isn't just any reactor. It's based on their ACP-R50S design, the same one powering their floating power plants. Except this version is specifically modified for 1/6 gravity and can generate 10 megawatts. That's enough to power a small city. Why China's location changes everything. Now, let's talk about location, because this is where China's strategy gets brilliant. They're not just randomly picking a spot. They're targeting Shackleton Crater at the moon's south pole, and whoever controls Shackleton basically controls the moon's future. Here's why. First, the peaks around Shackleton receive sunlight 90% of the time. That's nearly constant solar power. The Apollo landing sites, they get 50% sunlight at best. This means China's base can operate continuously without relying entirely on nuclear power. Second, and this is crucial, water ice. NASA estimates Shackleton contains 100 million tons of water ice. That's not just drinking water. That's rocket fuel, split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And you've got the most efficient rocket propellant known to science. China's base wouldn't just be a research station, it would be a gas station for the entire solar system. But here's the strategic part nobody's talking about. International space law works on a first-come, first-served basis. Once China establishes a permanent presence, they can claim a safety zone, extending several kilometers around their base. The best spots for solar power? The richest ice deposits? If China gets there first, they effectively control access. And they're already mapping it. The Queqiao-2 relay satellite isn't just helping communicate with the far side of the moon. It's equipped with ground-penetrating radar that's been mapping subsurface ice deposits for the past 18 months. They know exactly where to dig. NASA is still deciding where to land. The tech NASA wishes they had. Let's dive into the technology, because this is where things get really interesting. China's Long March 9th super heavy lift rocket, their answer to SpaceX's Starship, just completed its first integrated engine test. Not a single engine, all 30 engines firing together. The footage was leaked last week, and it shows something remarkable. A 12-second burn with 0 anomalies. But rockets are just the delivery system. The real innovation is in what they're sending up. China's life support system uses something called bioregenerative technology. Basically, they're growing algae that converts CO2 to oxygen while simultaneously producing food. 1 square meter of their algae tanks can support 1 person indefinitely. NASA's current system requires regular supply missions from Earth. The construction robots are even more impressive. They're using something called swarm intelligence. Hundreds of small robots working together like ants. Each robot is simple, almost disposable, but together they can build complex structures without human supervision. If one breaks, the others continue. NASA's approach uses a few large, expensive robots. If one breaks, construction stops. Here's something that wasn't supposed to be public. China's already deployed their lunar GPS system. 3 satellites in lunar orbit, providing positioning accurate to within 1 meter anywhere on the moon's surface. They launched them as technology demonstrators, with recent missions, but they're fully operational. Any future Chinese mission will have precise navigation from day one. The Tiangong space station isn't just for Earth orbit experiments. Module 4, launched 6 months ago, is actually a prototype lunar habitat. They've been testing it with actual crew in actual space conditions. When they land on the moon, they're bringing proven technology, not prototypes. The new space alliance. This is where geopolitics gets fascinating. China isn't just building a moon base, they're creating an entirely parallel space economy, and countries are lining up to join. Russia brings decades of space experience and nuclear technology. Pakistan provides rare earth elements crucial for electronics. The UAE offers funding, $10 billion already committed. Saudi Arabia just announced another $15 billion. Venezuela guarantees uranium for nuclear reactors. Each partner brings something unique to the table. But here's what's really happening. China is offering these countries something NASA can't. Equal partnership. The Artemis Accords require countries to follow American-led rules. China's International Lunar Research Station Treaty offers co-ownership. Partners don't just visit the base, they own sections of it. The economic projections are staggering. Goldman Sachs estimates the lunar economy will be worth $1 trillion by 2040. But that assumes equal access. If China controls the key resources, the water, the helium-3, the best solar locations, they essentially control the entire lunar economy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Several European Space Agency members are quietly exploring partnership with China. They haven't signed anything publicly, but backdoor meetings have been happening. Italy sent a delegation to Beijing last month. Spain is observing China's program. Even Germany, a key NASA partner, is keeping their options open. The divide isn't just political, it's technological. China is offering partners access to technology that would take them decades to develop independently. Closed-loop life support, nuclear space reactors, lunar construction techniques. For smaller nations, it's an offer they can't refuse. How NASA is scrambling. NASA's response has been nothing short of panic mode. 3 days after China's announcement, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson called an emergency meeting with Congress. His message was blunt. We are in a space race, and we're losing. The numbers tell the story. Artemis 3, NASA's return to the moon, was just delayed again to 2027, maybe 2028. China's timeline? They're accelerating. What was planned for 2030 is now happening in 2026. By the time NASA lands, China might already have a functioning base. Congress approved emergency funding, $4.7 billion. But here's the problem. Money can't buy time. SpaceX's human landing system is still in development. The lunar spacesuits just failed another test. The Gateway station is over budget and behind schedule. Behind closed doors, the Pentagon is freaking out. A leaked memo from Space Force Command used the phrase strategic disadvantage 17 times. They're not worried about scientific research. They're worried about military implications. Whoever controls the moon's high ground controls cislunar space. And cislunar space is where all our GPS, communication, and spy satellites live. NASA's new strategy? Partnership at any cost. They're fast-tracking agreements with India, Japan, and South Korea. They're offering SpaceX unprecedented contracts. Blue Origin just got a surprise $3.4 billion award. But even with all this activity, one NASA engineer told me off the record, we're playing catch-up, and everyone knows it.